Final Fantasy XIII is the biggest gaming disappointment to hit the industry in the last 5 years. A title that improves upon Heavy Rain's concept of an interactive movie without even trying to. Contrary to popular belief, the game does have a story, but it's a story that's more annoying than compelling. There are two worlds to the story: Grand Pulse, the meandering, pointless part of the tale, and Cocoon, where all the plot that actually means anything actually takes place. Long ago were godlike creatures called fal'Cie who, for reasons that make less sense than the plot of a Lars von Trier movie, occasionally choose a human to perform a specific task, or focus. But they're not told what their focus is, much less how to complete it. So if the l'Cie fails to find or complete said focus, they devolve into a monster. If they succeed, they're rewarded by being turned into a crystal statue for all eternity instead. That's like going to Harvard for 4 years, getting a degree, and then ending up with a job flipping burgers. At some point, humans got sick of the bullshit and fled Grand Pulse to Cocoon, only to find that they were still being turned into l'Cie anyway, which is kind of like deciding your neighborhood is getting too violent, so you move away to Hell's Kitchen. The heroes of the story are your typical ragtag group: the ballsy revolutionary, the former soldier turned rogue, the butch lesbian, the token black guy, the vapid airhead, and the emo douche. In trying to save the life of a friend/girlfriend/sister who has been turned into crystal, they are directed by the great space pope to go to Grand Pulse, where they run around doing absolutely nothing until they run back into him after he's transformed into Metroplex and defeat him in battle, after which he then turns around and tells them that their whole time at Grand Pulse has been pointless and they must go back to Cocoon where their real focus lies. Great storytelling, right? All during which we have flashbacks to flesh out the characters that mostly all take place at the same party on the beach, or cutscenes where the terms fal'Cie, l'Cie, pulse l'Cie, and focus are repeated so often that you feel compelled to drop a shot whenever each of them are used just to make the game somewhat more compelling. Yes, the game is pure eye candy, but to be honest, outside of it being in high resolution, there's nothing here that you haven't seen already in Final Fantasies 8 through 12, especially 12. Gamers oohed and awed over the snapshots and video clips leaked out for years before this game's release, and while it is nice to look at, there's really nothing here that stands out over JRPGs that came before it in this current generation, such as Lost Odyssey or Star Ocean 4. The music is on again, off again. There are sweeping, epic orchestral scores like in the previous installments, but none of it will stay with you like certain themes from, say, 7, 10, or even 12. But then to make matters worse, the game will inevitably show off Square Enix failing attempts to make it more appealing to Western audiences, such as several cutscenes concerning Zaz, where the music suddenly changes to Down on the Bayou-style harmonica composition. It would be like Epic Games bringing out Gears of War 3 and having a Japanese character who, whenever the cinematics focus on him, you hear kung fu fighting playing in the background. The concept of exploration has been almost completely excised from this game. The plot moves forward in chapters which play more like levels in a linear third-person action title, giving it the feeling of someone having taken a game like, say, Ninja Gaiden and replacing the real-time fighting with a menu-driven combat system. All the chapters but one consist of the following formula: run down a hallway attacking bad guys, see a cutscene, fight more bad guys, see another cutscene, fight a boss, repeat. This, coupled with no branching paths, no side quests that add to the plot, and no towns, equals a game that's the very definition of linear. There is no saving up money to just buy the best weapon, you have to build it. And since the game has no plot points that tell you what the most powerful weapon is, you never really know if you have it or not. And if you haven't beaten the game yet, rest assured you don't have that weapon. You can't get the best weapons until you pick up a very specific item that you can only get after completing the main quest. Yeah, friends, it's just that stupid. Speaking of pointless weapon upgrading, let's talk about the Crystarium. No more powering up what is most important to you. No, all attributes are linked in the order the game wants you to get them. But it gets even worse. The game has caps on the Crystarium. You will get so far, and then there's simply no branching path up to the higher level. So you go fight the boss, you win, and then a message magically pops up saying, Crystarium expanded. In other words, no more level grinding so that you can totally dominate over a boss fight, which is one of the things that makes the JRPGs fun to begin with. The game limits you on a chapter-by-chapter basis so that when you go up against a boss, you're just powerful enough to win, which, if you think about it, completely defeats the purpose of even having a level-up system in the first place, as it creates the impression that you never get any stronger than you already are. And to add insult to injury, the game is capped at level 4 until after you beat the final boss. You can't even max out your characters before the last boss fight. Now the combat system. In short, it's been dumbed down to make it easier for new players to the genre. You can only control one character during a fight. The others, you can generally control what action sets they'll use, but you can't control their individual actions. You have the ability to choose each and every action your leader makes, but the game makes that process very slow and plodding compared to the auto battle system, which it so clearly wants you to use as your default method of play. The combat revolves around the paradigm system, where by hitting the L1 button you can change the subset of actions for each character. So a commando uses physical attacks, a ravager uses magic attacks, a medic casts heal spells, a saboteur casts negative attribute spells on opponents, and sentinels use spells to draw attacks towards themselves and away from others. The only strategy in the game at all comes from building your own custom paradigms to suit your style of play. But what this allows you to do is essentially cheat and make more moves than the timed actions would normally allow. For instance, if you attack normally, after however many action slots you have to sit and wait for the action bars to fill back up. But if you build an identical paradigm and switch to it after doing your primary paradigm, you instantly get half a full bar, so you can perform those two moves, then switch back to the previous paradigm, and that one now has a full bar, and perform those moves, then switch back again, and so on. I'll show you this in action in a second. So everyone kept telling me, just wait till you get to Chapter 11 and you'll love it. It'll feel just like your favorite Final Fantasy games of old. Sorry, but no. You get to Chapter 11, and all of a sudden the whole storyline comes to a screeching halt, and you're stuck in the middle of Jurassic fucking Park. Grand Pulse is a huge, wide-open sandbox full of roaming creatures, go kill this monster and come back side quests, and no plot development whatsoever. So 10 chapters of linearity is fixed by making one chapter of the game a big open field full of grind monsters and repetitive side quests, made useless by the fact that the game won't allow you to grind past Crystarium level 4 anyway. So here's the combat in action. You do your attacks, hit L1, choose the same paradigm, the bar goes to halfway, let it do those two attacks, switch back, the bar is full again, do those attacks, switch to a medic paradigm if you need to, repeat until you win. The whole battle boils down to L1, down, down, X, L1, up, up, X, repeat. There, you're now an expert at Final Fantasy XIII, as every single battle can be won this way, including the boss fights. And don't worry about running out of potions or magic, since all life and magic power go back to full after every single battle. Oh, and you may be wondering about summons. Well, each character has one summon he or she earns by defeating that summon in battle. But remember, only one character can be directly controlled at one time, so guess what? You can only use one summon during a battle, the summon of your lead character, unless you power that character back up to where he can cast it again, which makes 5 out of your 6 summons completely useless. And none of them are particularly powerful anyway, since none of your attacks do real damage till you hit an opponent's breakpoint, whereby the damage is then increased by a multiplier. But even then, your summon's most powerful attack will rarely even take down a fourth of a boss's life bar, even when they're in that critical attack state. In other words, you can beat this game without ever casting a single summon. The only thing they're good for at all is if your party's health is low, you can cast your summon, do its attacks that do hardly any damage, and when the attack is over, your characters are all at full health again. Whoop-de-fucking-do. In the end, there is no excuse for how much this game blows, even when you consider possible downgrades it went through to put it on multiple consoles. The game fails because of its combat system, its superfluous leveling system, and its pointless catering to an audience that doesn't exist. In trying to cater the game to Western audiences, an audience they obviously knew little about, Squeenix went in the opposite direction, since Western audiences love the exploration and open-world gameplay of RPG titles like Fallout 3, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and others. In the end, they took their tried-and-true JRPG formula and made it into what is essentially a JRPG simulator. And for that alone, Final Fantasy XIII gets negative 13 bajillion and a half stars out of 7.
Hope!
Fuck you, Snow. My hope died 50 hours ago.